History tells us something simple. Ancient people didn't know the world. They believed oceans were endless. Continents were myths. And the edge of the map was literally, "Here be monsters." But what if that story is completely wrong? Because scattered across museums, royal libraries, and forgotten archives, there are ancient maps that show knowledge humanity supposedly didn't have yet. Maps that reveal America before it was discovered. Maps that show Antarctica centuries before explorers arrived. Maps that chart oceans with a precision that even modern historians struggle to explain. And the deeper researchers look into these maps, the more disturbing the question becomes. Who actually made them? Because if these maps are genuine, then either ancient civilizations had knowledge far beyond what history admits. Explorers reached continents centuries before Columbus. Or someone erased part of human history. And today we are uncovering 10 ancient maps that shouldn't exist. But before we begin, if you're fascinated by the hidden secrets of history, the kind most textbooks never mention, make sure you subscribe to Top 10 Untold, because every episode reveals truths that challenge what we think we know. Now let's begin with a map that shocked historians worldwide. Warning 10. The Piri-Reis Map. In 1929, historians examining ancient documents inside Topkapi Palace discovered a map that would ignite one of the biggest historical mysteries ever. It was created in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral named Piri-Reis. At first glance, the map seemed ordinary. But the more experts studied it, the stranger it became. Because the map shows the coastlines of South America with stunning accuracy. And that alone is surprising, because in 1513, much of South America was barely explored. But the real shock came from the bottom of the map. Many researchers believe it depicts the coastline of Antarctica. That would be impossible. Antarctica wasn't officially discovered until 1820. Yet this map was drawn 300 years earlier. Some researchers even claim the coastline resembles Antarctica without its ice sheet, something modern scientists only mapped using radar technology in the 20th century. How could a 16th century mapmaker know this? Piri-Reis himself left a note on the map saying he used much older source maps, some allegedly dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. If that claim is true, then somewhere in the ancient world existed maps far older than recorded history. But if that wasn't strange enough, the next map might prove Europeans reached America before Columbus ever sailed. Warning 9. The Vinland Map. In the 1950s, historians uncovered a mysterious medieval map known as the Vinland Map. At first it looked like a typical medieval world map. Europe, Africa, Asia. But in the far western corner, there was something unexpected. A landmass labeled Vinland. Historians immediately realized what this meant. Vinland was the name used by Viking explorers for North America. According to the map, this land was already known in the 1400s. That's decades before Christopher Columbus sailed west in 1492. If the map is authentic, It suggests that European knowledge of America existed long before Columbus. Which would mean one of history's biggest claims that Columbus discovered America may have been exaggerated. But the Vinland map also triggered fierce debate. Some scholars say the ink appears modern. Others insist the parchment dates to the 1400s. The argument continues today. But even if this map were fake, there are other ancient maps with equally disturbing implications. Because the next one changed the world forever. Warning 8. The Waldseemüller map. In 1507, a German cartographer named Martin Waldseemüller produced a massive world map that would alter human history. This map did something no map had ever done before. It showed the Western Hemisphere as a completely separate continent. And for the first time ever, the map labeled that continent America. The name honored the explorer Amerigo Vespucci, who argued that the lands discovered across the Atlantic were not Asia, but an entirely new world. Today the Waldseemüller map is often called the birth certificate of America. But historians still wonder something unsettling. How did Waldseemüller know the shape of the Americas so early? At that time, large portions of the continent hadn't been explored yet. Yet his map already outlines them in surprising detail. Did he have access to unknown explorer reports, lost maps, or knowledge that vanished from history? Whatever the answer, this map permanently changed how humanity saw the planet. But the next map might be even more mysterious. Because it was created by two explorers who may never have existed at all. Warning 7. The Zeno map. In 1558, a Venetian nobleman named Niccolò Zeno published a strange map and claimed it was based on the voyages of his ancestors from the 1300s. According to the story, two Venetian brothers named Niccolò Zeno and Antonio Zeno sailed across the North Atlantic decades before Columbus. The map now known as the Zeno map showed islands, coastlines, and territories across the North Atlantic. Some believe it depicts parts of Greenland, Iceland, and possibly even North America. If the story were true, it would mean Europeans explored the North Atlantic almost 200 years earlier than historians believe. But critics argue the map contains mistakes. Some islands don't exist. Some coastlines are distorted. So the question remains, was this a genuine map based on lost voyages? Or a Renaissance hoax designed to glorify a family name? The truth is still debated. But the next map might be the most disturbing of all. Because it appears to show the world before the Ice Age ended. Warning 6. The Orance Fine Map. In 1531, French mathematician Orance Fine created one of the strangest world maps ever recorded. Known as the Orance Fine Map, it shows a massive southern continent. Today we call that continent Antarctica. But here's the problem. Antarctica wasn't discovered until 1820. Yet this map shows a detailed coastline. Even more shocking, the continent is drawn without its ice sheet, which raises an unsettling possibility. If this map is accurate, then whoever originally mapped Antarctica must have seen it before it was covered in ice. Scientists estimate Antarctica has been frozen for thousands of years. So how could a Renaissance cartographer know this? Did he rely on ancient sources, lost civilizations, or knowledge that disappeared long before recorded history? And if that sounds impossible, the maps coming next will make it even harder to dismiss. Warning 5. The Cantino Planisphere. In 1502, a mysterious world map was secretly smuggled out of Portugal. The man behind the theft was Alberto Cantino. The map, now called the Cantino Planisphere, was originally created by Portuguese cartographers working for the royal court. At that time Portugal was the most powerful maritime nation on Earth. Its explorers were mapping new lands across the Atlantic and around Africa. But this information was top secret. Maps were treated like military intelligence. Because whoever controlled the maps controlled the oceans. The Cantino Planisphere revealed something shocking to the rest of Europe. It showed the coast of Brazil in remarkable detail only 2 years after Portuguese explorers reached it. It also mapped much of Africa and parts of the Indian Ocean with surprising accuracy. Historians believe this map triggered a cartographic arms race across Europe. Suddenly every kingdom wanted better maps, better navigation, better explorers, because whoever mastered the oceans would dominate the future. But the next map didn't just guide explorers. It completely changed how humanity understood the shape of the Earth. Warning 4. The Mercator Map. In 1569, a brilliant cartographer named Gerardus Mercator created a world map that revolutionized navigation. This map, the Mercator Map, introduced something called the Mercator projection. For the first time, sailors could plot straight-line courses across oceans. Ships could navigate vast distances with far greater accuracy. The map quickly became the standard for global navigation. Even today, many modern maps are still based on Mercator's projection. But there was a strange feature on his map. At the very top, Mercator depicted a mysterious landmass surrounding the North Pole. The region showed 4 massive islands separated by rivers flowing into a central whirlpool. This mythical land was supposedly based on earlier maps and traveler reports. But no such geography exists in the Arctic. So where did Mercator get the idea? Was it based on lost sources, ancient myths, or a misunderstood description of the polar region? No one knows. But one thing is certain. The next map is far older and far more advanced. Warning 3. Tabula Rogeriana. In the year 1154, an extraordinary map was created in Sicily. It was commissioned by the Norman king Roger II of Sicily. The man who created it was a Muslim scholar named Muhammad al-Idrisi. His masterpiece was called the Tabula Rogeriana. For centuries it remained one of the most accurate maps ever produced. Al-Idrisi gathered information from merchants, travelers, sailors, and explorers across the Islamic world. The result was astonishing. The map accurately depicted much of Europe, North Africa, and Asia centuries before European cartography caught up. But what makes the map strange is its orientation. South appears at the top, and north at the bottom. Yet despite this unusual layout, many of its geographic features were incredibly precise. For nearly 300 years, no European map matched its accuracy. Which raises an uncomfortable question. Did medieval scholars know far more about the world than we assume? Or did they inherit knowledge from even older civilizations? Warning 2. The Fra Mauro map. In 1459, a Venetian monk named Fra Mauro created what many historians consider the greatest medieval map ever drawn. Known as the Fra Mauro map, it was enormous. Over 6 feet wide, and filled with thousands of annotations describing lands, cultures, and trade routes. Fra Mauro relied heavily on reports from Arab traders who traveled the Indian Ocean. One detail shocked historians. The map suggests that sailors from the Indian Ocean may have rounded the southern tip of Africa long before the famous voyage of Vasco da Gama. If that claim were true, then the discovery of the sea route to Asia might not belong to Portugal after all. Instead, it might have been known centuries earlier. History often celebrates explorers, but maps like this suggest something else. Sometimes the knowledge already existed. It was simply forgotten. Warning 1. The Hereford Mappa Mundi. The final map on our list is perhaps the most famous medieval map in existence. The Hereford Mappa Mundi, created around 1300 and preserved inside Hereford Cathedral. At first glance it looks strange. The world is filled with mythical creatures, biblical events, legendary locations. But historians discovered something fascinating. The map is not just religious symbolism. It contains hundreds of real geographic locations from across Europe, Asia, and Africa. Cities, rivers, trade routes, pilgrimage paths. It was essentially a medieval attempt to combine science, history, and belief into one giant world map, which reveals something profound about ancient cartography. Maps were never just tools. They were stories about how people understood the world. And sometimes, those stories contained fragments of knowledge we still don't fully understand. History often feels complete, as if everything important has already been discovered. But ancient maps tell a different story. They suggest the past may be far more complicated than we realize. Lost voyages, forgotten knowledge, civilizations that mapped the world long before historians believed possible. And the biggest question of all, what else has history forgotten? If you enjoy uncovering mysteries like this, subscribe to Top 10 Untold and join us in exploring the secrets history tried to bury. Because the deeper we look into the past, the stranger it becomes.